When we're playing an RPG like Dungeons & Dragons, there are plenty of ways to track your progress and growth in the game. You have several attributes and skills which improve as you complete quests. You have a level system with experience points or milestones that let you advance to more powerful abilities. You also have physical loot that you accrue, like gold or magic weapons that you gather on your journey. You can even gather allies to fight the big bad evil guy. Unless you just murder every NPC, then I don't know. I guess you could just do a body count of all the people you kill. All these things are measurable and trackable and let you know how close your character is to their ultimate goal. There are tons of ways to show your progress. However, when it comes to tracking our actual physical health progress, the reality is quite different than fantasy. The tendency is for most people to use a single stat to judge this very complex and multifaceted dimension of who we are. There are dozens and dozens of metrics you can use to judge your health, besides that number on the scale. I'm going to be talking about the metrics that I'll be using not to only track my progress, but give me motivation on the long road up ahead. Ready? Let's get fortified. This is week 1 of my 6-month health journey. If you haven't seen my first video on what I'm going to be doing, you can watch it right here. Basically, I'm going to be using the next 6 months as an experiment to see if I can get healthier without restrictive dieting and without measuring my weight. I know that may sound a little crazy, but I'm telling you, there's a lot more to your health than that number on the scale. I'm going to be tracking about 20 different metrics that I feel are a lot more encompassing picture of my health than just my weight. This is because health is multifaceted. It's the intersection of many different things. A single number alone, like weight, can't accurately measure all these things at once. While it may be simpler to use weight as a god stat, it just doesn't paint a complete picture of what's going on. The rest of the video will be a quick overview of the stats I'm tracking and why I'm tracking them. Let's start with the biostats that I'm going to be using. Biostats measure my physical condition. These are the measures that are traditionally looked at when it comes to my health. Normally, this is where weight would be used, but since we're not looking at that, let's see what else we've got. Before this challenge, I got a blood test to see my starting cholesterol, LDL, and HDL values. These are measures that are highly correlated with things like cardiovascular risk, peripheral vascular disease, and stroke. I want to take another blood test halfway through the challenge and then again at the end of the challenge to show what positive effects this journey is having on these risk factors. Next, I'm going to be taking measure of my waist, my neck, chest, and thigh size. While the only real correlative statistic for health here is waist size, I want to take the other measurements for a more vain reasons. I want to fit in some of my nice suits again. I love the look of a well-cut, well-fitted suit, and I hope to be able to fit into my favorite ones before wedding season arrives again in 2025 or whenever it opens up again. I'll also be tracking my blood pressure regularly. While I don't typically have high blood pressure, I'm kind of curious to see if I can get my blood pressure to trend lower over the next 6 months. High blood pressure is definitely a health risk, so I definitely want to see how much of an effect I can make on that. More important for me though is my daily average heart rate. I tend to have a very high heart rate, which may be a side effect of my sleep apnea. I want to see if I can get that number down over the next 6 months. Speaking of sleep apnea, I'm going to be tracking how much sleep I get and how many times throughout the night it's interrupted. Next is the psychological, emotional, and behavioral stats that I'm going to be tracking. The first and foremost important tracker is going to be my habit tracker. I have several habits which I want to track and implement over the next 6 months, but we'll see how consistent I can be with this. This is more of a goal than an outcome measure, but I thought I'd put it here since it's so important to me. After reading Health at Every Size, I wanted to give their fullness tracker a shot. It's a little chart that lets you rate your fullness level, which can help you when you're eating mindfully. I think a lot of people overestimate their ability to judge their fullness level accurately, so I think this chart will definitely be helpful. I hope that over the next 6 months, I can get those fullness levels to a consistently reasonable level to show that I don't overeat as much as I do now. I'll also be tracking how many servings of fruits and vegetables that I have daily, hoping that I can trend upwards over the next 6 months. I thought that tracking my energy levels would be a pretty helpful metric to look at. Why? Because tracking energy is vastly underutilized when judging your ability to complete tasks throughout the day. I'm still looking for the right way to implement this, but I think it's going to be a spreadsheet where I enter my energy level from 1 to 4 at specific times during the day. I may also use our spell slot tracker, which we are developing, which will be an interesting look into how I plan my day based on how many spell slots I got left. Don't worry, I'll be talking about that more in a later video. In terms of my mental health, there are a few tools and questionnaires I'll be utilizing to track my mental state, my mood, and my anxiety levels. Once again, I hope to trend towards average improvement after 6 months. If you want to see the scales that I'm using, click the link down below and download all of them. Finally, the most exciting part of the journey, my fitness tracking. If you haven't already, go download the Adventurer's Guide, which contains our character sheet that we created that assesses your real-life RPG stats. It's totally free. Link again, down below. I'll be using our character sheet as the key performance indicator of my fitness over the next 6 months. I'm hoping to improve on my strength, my dexterity, agility, and my mobility stats by at least 1 or 2. In a future video, I'll demonstrate how to perform each of the individual components of this assessment so you can follow along and get your own real-life RPG stats. I'll also be sharing the exercise tracker that I developed, which lets me vary my daily workouts and ensure that I hit all the components of fitness that I want to focus on during the next 6 months. Look, I know it's a lot. I think I'll be concurrently tracking over 20 metrics, which is really overkill for the average person. However, since I really wanted to get more data to share with you, I'm gonna go out of my way to track these things. I may add or drop tracking certain things during the next 6 months, but I'll always keep the link down below updated for the trackers that I'm currently using. So that's my update for this week. Things are already feeling better, and I definitely noticed more energy after being more mindful with eating. Next week, I'll show you exactly how to get your real-life RPG stats using our character sheets, so you're not going to want to miss that. Make sure to subscribe down below to get our notifications. And if you really want to interact with us, come join our growing community on Discord. See you next week, folks. And as always, don't forget to fortify strength.